Okay, so I am here with Amanda Flaker, and we have this urging to try out something that we haven't done together before, but that is to do kind of a forecast energetically for what's coming up for this next month. And so we thought we'd just play and see what
Yeah,
comes up. Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited. I truthfully didn't tune in at all before because I wanted to just show up in the moment and see what comes through. So I'm excited for your questions and just to see how spirit wants to lead it.
I'm excited too. And I'm also thinking that if anyone was to tune in that's not used to hearing like energy forecasts and they're not familiar with that, it might be nice, since this is our first time, to give a little background on how you do this. Like, so when you say tapping in, what does that mean? How do you tap in?
Well, first of all, I just have to say I've never really done formally an energy forecast. So for me, when I say tap in, usually it's just me tapping into my intuition. I do feel like in sessions, um, when I tap in, it's like I can feel the energetic imprint, and I feel it so viscerally that it's almost easy to predict the energetic pattern of what will happen next or what's coming, or what mainly I don't do predictions, but when I work with people it's more what they might need, or where there might need to be some space in their body for the emotional work that's coming through. So I would say particularly anything that I would tune into would be on the grid of empaths in particular. I probably want to clarify that because that's where I'm tapped into. So I don't I would say this would be, I'm curious ever since you brought up the question. Yeah, what is, like, where is our grid, and what's coming, and what are the energetic patterns? That's sort of more what I feel when I tap in.
Absolutely. So when you tap into your intuition, what do you think powers that? How does that work for you?
I think it's a combination of experience, like the things you've learned from your own experience, and like the intuition that I mean, I don't know how much of intuition is just what you're born with or how much is developed over time. I feel like mine has definitely developed more and more the more I learn to tune in and tap in. Um, but I also think it is, wait, remind me what your question was. Now I got tuned out with what I was just saying.
No, that's
What is
perfect. So
perfect?
like just kind of how you like what tapping into your intuition is, like what powers that?
Yeah. Instincts too. I feel like instincts are a big part of it
Mhm.
that powers that. And then also just obviously energy primarily. And when I tap in, I try to feel into, I like to call it source because that just feels the most accurate to me. I think God sometimes has negative connotations from religious upbringing. So, but source, like where, like the power that animates us, all of us,
Mhm.
the life force that animates us. I like to tune in that way. I don't think of it as something outside of me or something far away. I think of it as like almost like the deepest part of me, where whatever's powering me from the inside out, that's what I want to tap, you know?
I love that so much. I love that so much, especially coming from the way that I used to think about who God was as a outside force that was like looking over me and judging me. And now the perspective I have is that this force is within me and is loving and supportive, and it is the source of all life everywhere. It's just such a different come from. Mhm.
And to know that you can tune in an intimate way to that power, and that
Mhm.
it can speak to you. I think this is what people mean when they pray and they say like God spoke to me and this or that. And I know obviously that has been taken to extremes as well, but I do think that just like animals and their instincts, we have something inside of us that is protective in nature, and that I think if we listen to it can help us maneuver and navigate our reality.
Mhm.
It's sort of
Yeah,
just tuning into a bigger perspective.
right. So do you have a way that you've fine-tuned your instincts and your intuition?
Honestly, probably the thing that has helped me fine tune it the most is find, this might sound weird, but becoming more and more authentic.
Mhm.
it really has taken me a while to understand. I think I grew up I sort of learned how to tell people what they want to hear
Mhm.
and be sort of the people pleaser type of person. And I think that can actually really get us out of touch with our intuition. So I had to learn how to be authentic again. And I think because for me, my intuition speaks so through my emotions.
Mhm.
So I had to really get authentic about what I actually feel,
Mhm.
and and because I didn't know for so long that I was an empath, I didn't realize that so much of what I felt actually wasn't even about me. And so it's I think the pathway in for me was just authenticity. And I've noticed the more I fine tune my authenticity, the more accurate my intuition and my tends to be, and the more honed my instincts tend to be.
Mhm. Yeah, that reminds me of the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, where he talks about be impeccable with your word
Yeah.
and like not to say things that aren't authentic, right? The more that, yeah, I can totally relate to what you're saying. And as empaths, it seems like a lot of us got into a pattern of saying what people needed to hear in order to be safe or in order to get what we needed in that relationships, in
Exactly.
those
Yeah.
relationships.
It's powerful to, I think, for anyone to, even just for the fun of it, play with intuition and play with tuning in, play with really um, even naming sensations. They talk about this in
Mhm.
somatic work, like really paying attention to what you're feeling and finding vocabulary for it. That is, I think, a powerful way to not only just get clarity, but also just hone your intuition.
Mhm. Yeah, and I wasn't going to use this as a plug for the work that you do, but you do mentor people and you do have people listening to you on a regular basis, where they could learn some of the languaging that you've developed.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so they could follow you. There'll be links to follow you no matter what. Okay, so um, I guess what I'm wondering is if you'd kind of tap into that, all of those empaths out there, and just feel into that group of people, what do you
Mm.
think is important for them to know for this next month coming up?
Oh, I instantly could feel it. And this is connected to things I've already tapped into, but I think what's important to know is that you might feel things that shock you, and you might act in ways that surprise you. You might react. The volatility, the emotional volatility on the planet right now is it's off the charts.
Mhm.
And there is so much that has been suppressed and just on the DL for so long. Like we've kept such a facade for so long, and things are just coming to the surface, specifically and especially how people feel. So for empaths in particular, just knowing, if I think if we can expect the volatility, because so often we navigate by being preemptive, trying to protect ourselves from energy and create our own little bubbles. I think for a lot of us, it's going to be incredibly activating and empowering to go into it and to not be afraid of any of the volatility. Not to say we have to take it on, but to just allow it to move through us. Thinking more of, I'm just moving it through. I'm not going to hold it, but I'm also not going to suppress it. Just move it through, and be really intentional about it. Because I think otherwise it could scare us. We could think we're doing something wrong, or things in our lives are going wrong, because we have that belief when we don't necessarily feel all the emotions that we're supposed to feel. We believe we should only feel these things, and these things are wrong. So it feels like that is probably one of the most important things for empaths right now, is just to really be easy on themselves about emotions, allow themselves to feel things, don't hold anything back, but also not attach really to what you're feeling, and not internalize it or make it personal, but just move it through, move it through, move it through, and not be surprised if you see parts of yourself or just volatile emotions that come through that feel like, oh, these aren't me.
Mhm. Oh, I love that. Um, and what queued up for me when you were talking was, it was kind of related to what you said before, is in our languaging. So sometimes we'll feel something, we'll go, I am angry, I am upset.
Yep.
And one of the ways we can let it move through is, instead of saying I am this and claiming it as our, like, our being, our state, we can say I'm feeling this sensation, and it feels like anger, and then allow it to move through us.
Yeah, that's a really powerful tip. That's one that I'm still reminding myself to do, because we just do that in our language. I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm whatever. But yeah, changing it to I'm feeling, really, it just instantly lightens it a little bit.
Yeah, it creates that space like you were talking about. Okay. So that's what you feel like they need to know right off. Is there something that they need to know about the people around them in all of this volatility? How should we be interacting with those around us when we're really empathic during this next month with all of this volatility?
Yeah, I think in a similar vein, the energy of, I talk about witness a lot, and how witness is a really powerful energy that we can activate. It's different than judgment. Witness just, it makes nothing right or wrong. It just observes. And meditation teaches this. And there's something about witness that allows the volatility to, I think, transmute faster or move through faster. So in the same way that we might be feeling things or reacting in ways that feel like maybe out of character for us, other people will probably be as well. And people are feeling very intense about whatever they feel. And obviously there's so much going on and so much loss. People are in stress and in fear. So I think as it's easy to say, don't take it personal, but I think just activating, for me, I try to remind myself, how can I witness this instead of judge it? And in my witness, if I feel a reaction to how they feel, because that's normal, someone feels a certain way and I'm feeling palpably how they feel, and it might trigger something of how I feel, and then I might feel it more palpably. So that same witness has to go back to us. It's just something about having more of like you said this the other day in our group, was just more like, it's okay. There's an amazing power in when we realize we don't have to make it mean something like dun dun dun, this person did this horrible, said something horrible, or supports something I don't personally agree with, or whatever. Just taking away the potency of what that means, and let it be more like, okay, that's just information, rather than like it has to mean something, what's the word for final. Yeah.
Absolutely. So if people have been in that like hyper vigilant kind of like survival mode, it can be really difficult to do some of these things that you're saying right now. If you were to tap in, for those who haven't been able to kind of pull themselves out of survival mode up until now, what is your best read on that?
I mean, this is going to sound so simple, but number one, I think the easiest thing that we have access to that can help regulate how we feel that we forget is our breath. So the second we notice that, like our face getting flushed and the anger that comes out, or whatever the emotion is, like, but just the emotions coming through, the second we notice, wait, I feel maybe afraid or unsafe, to take a deep breath. And for me, I say this a lot, but just putting my hand on my heart, something about that is like the body actually, it stores the trauma. It has the memory of the trauma. And when we are afraid or we go into fight or flight, we are activating the past. So the body is living as if it truly is unsafe. And so something about just being tender to the body. Because again, when we're in such judgment, and it's abuse to the body. So just remembering, like, ooh, even if all I do and all I can do is just do this, and just reminding myself, I'm here, like I'm here, I got you, I'm safe,
Mhm.
you know, or even hugging yourself. Like for me, this is so comforting.
Mhm.
Like just this, I feel my body instantly like respond to it. And we know scientifically that the body does respond to touch, that we would literally die without touch.
Yeah.
And so much of what instigates us feeling safe is feeling alone. It's when we're at war with ourselves. So our humanity is what is in the most need. And we want to be, often when we're in fear, we feel like we need to be superhuman to circumvent anything bad happening. But I think actually getting in touch with our humanity and just being honest and authentic, what we talked about in the beginning, I'm feeling scared. Even just saying it out loud to yourself, there's something about that. There's a train going by, sorry. There's something about that that's just validating and comforting. And I think if we could focus, if people could take away one thing, and that is calm your body, regulate your own central nervous system, be present to your own self, and not make it so much about everything out there. That's probably like number one tip, I would say.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I know we've been practicing keeping things more concise lately. If you tap in again, is there anything else that you want to bring forward before we close this off for today?
Yeah, I think aside from all of that, because all of that almost sounds like prepare for something hard, I think be playful and curious and do art and be creative. I think that is one of the most potent ways that we can interact with these energies, because it really is, it just is what it is, but how we respond to it and what we do with it is what makes life, you know, it's what creates the art. And so just remembering that we have a say in what happens by how we interact with these energies, by how we show up in what we say and what we do, and just how we're being, how we're feeling. So getting playful, I think, is an anomaly, because people are, you mentioned the word hypervigilant, and I think people are almost like, you know, like preparing for worst case scenario in a lot of ways, or even just whether they're preparing for it or just afraid of it. I think, what if we spun that a little and just thought like, how can I be creative and doing things that you normally wouldn't do, you know, choosing anomaly, doing anomalous things that feel good, and being outside a lot, getting your bare feet on the ground, being in the sun and just imagining the sun in your cells, you know, like that, just connecting to our primal instincts, I think. And also what's coming through is in the morning and in the evening, like if you can be outside when the sun's coming up and when it's setting, to do it, to look at the sun while it's coming up and while it's setting, because it's something about really getting in rhythm with nature. It's going to help our resonance overall, and the energies that I think feel very chaotic. There's something about just being with the cycles, like letting your eyes literally see, even if you can look at the stars too, that it just feels like a massage for the brain. And that's where all the inflammation is, people in their thoughts and their fears. That's where we create from. So along with playing, even just like imagining best case scenario, planning for like awesome things to happen, making plans that feel really good within the context that you can make plans, you know, and just prioritizing pleasure, I think, would be a huge anomaly, the more of us that do it.
Yeah, it's creating that heaven on earth that you talk
Yeah.
about so often. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you for this. I think this is
You're
lots
welcome.
for everyone to chomp on for a month, and
I agree. I like
we'll
it.
check in again. We'll check in again before December.
Perfect. I love it.
Okay, great. Thank you.